Should bail be abolished entirely? Are there circumstances where a person should be given bail, and what are the likely consequences of both? What do you know about the New York bail reform law, and how do you feel about it? Is it just? Do you now feel safer in your home or on the street? Bail reform in New York is one of the issues you'll hear about in this program. You'll also meet another of Brooklyn's young academic achievers, Kaila Prescott, a student at a well-known professional performing arts high school. But we begin with an issue that's reverberating in communities across Brooklyn and indeed throughout the United States. Senator Roxanne Persaud, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
We will discuss issues such as your building code enforcement officer's bill and the good things that are happening in your community. But let's begin with that hot button issue, bail reform. What is this all about?
Bail reform, as you see on a daily basis, it's the headline. It's New York changing the criminal justice system. It's for too long. There were too many people who were languishing in prisons and jails without the ability to pay to come out of jails. So the legislature took a step forward to say, let's allow people, non-violent offenders, these are people who have not been charged with anything, let them out. Because remember, bail is only supposed to be used as a means to test whether someone will return for their court case, right? It is not the judge and the jury. And people think of it as that. People think that, oh, if we give someone bail, everything is fine. But look at the way the system has been for, hundreds of years. If you're rich and you can afford to pay the bail, you're out on the streets. If you're not, if you're, a poor person or a person of color primarily, you're languishing in prison without being charged. And that's the reason why the legislature had to do something. It was a necessary thing to do. It's not the most popular thing because many people are not taking the time to understand why it was necessary.
And we're going to let them know
We're
why
going to
it
let
is
them.
necessary.
That's correct.
But I understand there's been some conflict in Albany.
There's no conflict in Albany.
You said earlier the news media have been saying a
the
lot
news
about it.
media has been saying it, but that doesn't mean there's conflict in Albany. The advocates will tell you we should not touch it the way it is. There's never been in the history of legislation that you've authorized legislation and it immediately says, oh, we have to change it. You have to see, how does it work? Is it working the way you intended it to work? You have to assess it, and that hasn't been done. It's only been in effect from January 1st, 2020. If you listen to what people will say, you will think it's been that we've had it for 6 months and it's been mean tested. It has not been.
So
and the cases that you see in the media, the sensationalized headlines are just for what it is. For people who are against bail reform, they're putting that in the headline. And then afterwards, when you've proven them incorrect in what they have put out there, they're not coming back to the headline and say, I'm raising my hand, let me tell you the real story. They're not doing that because they're not going to get the headlines the same way, right? But bail reform was necessary. Is it perfect? I don't think any one of us as legislators are saying it is perfect. You have to look at it, evaluate it, and say, is there something that we should do?
So is this an evaluating period?
In the state Senate, our colleagues, our leaders are having the conversations and speaking with the parties involved, saying, okay, you tell us, why do you think we should fix something? And what do you think we should fix? And that's what we're currently doing. The Senate and the Assembly, if you listen to, the advocates come up and will say, Don't touch anything. But we're listening to all sides.
So the Senate and the Assembly, they are on, forgive me putting it this way, one accord.
I don't think you'll ever be in one accord. They've
But they're
decided,
pretty
yes,
much
well,
in
it's,
agreement.
yes. People, they're having the conversations, yes. And that's what we have to do. And the governor has been saying the same thing also. Let's have the conversations and let's put it out there.
One of your colleagues have been saying that you should follow the New Jersey model. What is this New Jersey model? How does it differ from the New York situation?
What people are saying is follow the New Jersey model, but give judges more discretion. Judges do have discretion. If you read the headlines, you would think they do not. You would think that bail was eliminated and judges have absolutely nothing else that they can do. They can. There are some instances that bail is still there. There are other ways that they can say someone has to wear an ankle monitor, for example. There are things that judges have the discretion to do, but they're saying let's have more of discretion, right? More of a discretion. So we're looking at it. More of a discretion to place more people from minority communities in prison. And this is my opinion. The jail system is an economy for certain areas of our state. And when you're trying to take away their economy, that's why you see the headlines.
But there are some people, many people high up in the police establishment, they're saying that the result has been a crime wave.
It has not been. And if you're talking about particularly NYPD,
Yes.
the statistician who cannot prove that. There is no evidence to prove what the commissioner has said. Some judges, when the law went, pending the new implementation of the law, January 1st, decided in November that they would start using the law so that they would not have a backlog. That was their decision to do that. That wasn't the legislator telling them, you must do this. The law went into effect January 1st, 2020. That's what it is. And for example, there was a district attorney in upstate who decided, just to set an example of us, to say, held someone and then let him go without charging him, without bail or anything, and says, I had to let him go because of the bail reform. But the issue that happened was from June of last year. The headline doesn't say that. It's June of last year. There was no law in June 2019. So you cannot say that's what caused you to do what you did. And then he waited a few days into 2020 and then says, these are the charges I'm going to bring against the person. Who's benefiting when you do that? Who's benefiting when you do that? People fail to realize that we needed to make changes to the law because of what was happening to people, in particularly people of color in our communities.
And a well-known legislator, your mayor, de Blasio, he says that there's been somewhat of an increase in crime.
There's no proof of that. There's no proof of that. The results show this past week, there was a news article that did an evaluation and an analysis of exactly what the NYPD and the mayor and everyone was saying. And there is no correlation between pre-trial bail reform and the spike in crime. What they're not telling you is that the reclassification of crimes caused the increase, right? So before, if 5 people here were mugged, right, in the same instance, you classified it as one crime. But now you have to classify, there were 5 instances of a crime. So last year it was only 1, it's 5 this year. What happens? There's an increase. Right? But that's not what they're talking. They're not saying we have reclassified things and that's causing. If you look at it, and there was an analysis done, there was nothing. The numbers that the commissioner did, just about 10%, I think, of crimes that the commissioner did would fall under bail reform. Nothing else. Nothing else. People are saying, last night someone said to me, I think you want to take us back into Dinkin years. And I'm like, really? What does that mean?
So what are your constituents saying about all this? What is the man in the street saying about all this?
It's a mixed bag. It depends on where in my district you're speaking. There are people who understood and still understand why it was needed. And then there's some who are just going based on what they read in the headline. And then we ask them, we say, can you really look at it? Give it time before you come to judgment. You know, there is no legislation, whether it's on the state level, the city level, or the federal level, that on the first day of implementation, you can say it is perfect. There's nothing. Never.
So give it time to work.
Give it time to work. But you cannot, and that people were on day one were saying you need to repeal it. People were forgetting that poor kids were being were being incarcerated because they couldn't pay that bail.
And that's the point.
But no one
That's
is
an
willing to
important
listen to that.
Yeah.
And those are the reasons why you had to do something. There were many people languishing in those prison cells because they could not afford the bail. They didn't have family to put it up, the bail or bond for them. They could not do. So what do? They sit there and then they say, and then somebody says to them, just plea, make a plea deal with them. So they'll plead to the highest, whatever they're being told to plead to, because they want to get out. You're breaking up families, you're tearing communities apart. And for some of the crime, we're talking nonviolent crimes. We're not talking murders and all of that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking most instances nonviolent crimes.
Okay.
And nonviolent as defined by law, not what the legislature just did, as defined by the law. We have not changed the law. We have just changed what bail is and what bail should be. That's all we've done. The crimes, the categories remain the same. We haven't changed that.
The law says that this is an important year. This is census year. And a lot of people are not, there you go.
Census 2020.
Yes.
How important is the census?
You tell me.
Extremely important. Kings County had the lowest response rate of the census. We are on track. If the people of Kings County do not complete the census the way they should, you hear us talking every day, let every count. We must have a complete count. We must have a complete count. If we do not complete that count, if people are not counted, we are on track to lose a representative in Washington. People don't realize that. People don't realize that there's over $700 billion of federal funding that's at stake coming into states based on your population. The last census, people didn't fill it out. We would knock on doors asking people, asking them, please fill it out. It is important. Are you interested in funding for your schools? Are you interested in funding for your centers? Are you in infrastructure for the state? That's the reason you should fill out the census. Don't be afraid of filling the census information out. People, last year in 2019, there was the conversation about the citizenship question, which made people deadly afraid. And some of them are still afraid. We're trying to get over that, saying to them, the census cannot ask you your immigrant status. The census when the census information is collected, it cannot be shared with other government agencies. That's most important. But you have to tell us how many people are living in your house.
Whether they're citizens.
What has nothing to do with citizenship. It's whomever. If you have,
even if they're visitors.
Listen, even if there's it's a visitor. You have a visitor who comes and wants to plop on your couch for 6 months, you better count them because they're using resources within our state. They must be counted. I don't care. Somebody who came and overstayed a visa, that's not it. It's the resources that are being used in the community. If you're pregnant and you're going to have your baby is due April 1st, you count as a person who's going to be in your household. People aren't counting their children. Why aren't you counting your children? In 10 years, don't you think they need resources?
That's right. The resources are going to be less.
Exactly. We had, I tell people, when I walk around and tell people, I said, if I'm telling the government, my community, we have 500,000 people, and then they do the official count, because that's the official count, how they determine population. And only 5,000 people complete that census. What do you think the resources are that we'll be receiving? We'll receive resources for 5,000 people.
Yeah.
And now it becomes our issue to stretch it to accommodate 500,000 people. That shouldn't be. 500,000 people should be completing that census.
Okay. Listeners, you heard. You must fill out the census.
And it's an online census. We're all opening our offices. Anyone who needs assistance in completing it can come to our Senate office. And, we'll help you log into the computer and complete it. There are probably about 10 questions. It doesn't take long.
I want to talk about your building code bill. Tell us about it.
Last week in the Senate, we passed a number of bills about building code enforcement. Too often we found that in some areas that the person who is supposed to enforce the rules around elevators and all of these things, they were not having enough training. And so we're mandating the Secretary of the State to create these trainings so that people will have continuing education. It does not affect anyone. We're not saying if you don't do it, you're going to lose your job, but you're required to do it. And you have to show that you're trying to take the courses when offered by the Secretary of the State. If you've made the attempt to complete the courses and we're not offering it completely, then you're given additional time to complete it. It also does not affect anyone who part of their collective bargaining agreement, that has any special approved authorizations in there. It has nothing to do with that. It's just making sure that the standard of training, that's the level of education that people are receiving, is at the highest level, so that when they go to the job, they're capable of doing their job in the right way.
What are some of the things happening in your district that you want people to know about?
So first, let me tell you the district I represent. My district starts in Brownsville. It's East New York. It's Canarsie. It's Mill Basin, Bergen Beach, Georgetown. It's a lot. And then it goes all the way into Sheepshead Bay. So it's a cosmopolitan district. The needs on each part of the district are different. For example, I've been asking the governor and all of them to give me more funding for gun violence initiatives in East New York and Brownsville. Their needs of the senior population. You may know that we're having a budget deficit coming to Medicaid and all of that. So we're asking for additional funding for our senior centers. We're looking at our schools. What is it that we need to do to make sure our children are all given the opportunity to excel based on the education they're receiving? So those are the things that we're working on. I have a number of NYCHA developments that there's a funding deficiency. We're trying to receive funding to clean up NYCHA. I think I have 19 NYCHA developments across my district, and some of the larger developments. What is it we need to do to ensure that people who are living in those developments are living in dignity, that their apartments are worthy of living, that the roofs, you hear all the time, NYCHA has a problem. We need $32 billion to fix NYCHA, partially fix NYCHA, right? And so we're currently, each of us are working on how much money can we get in the budgets to work on some of the issues. We can't fix them all in one sitting, but we have to work on, see what are the major ones. For example, boilers. Many of the boilers weren't replaced in decades. The infrastructure is so badly taken care of that we have a problem. You walk in and you see pipes are bursting because they haven't been changed in 50 years in some places. From day one when they were laid, they were never changed because of the way the buildings were constructed. We have apartments where Some people, the refrigerator hasn't been changed in 25 years. Those are the things that we're working on. So it depends on what part of the district I am. Those are the things. And so I have a complex list of needs that are going to the governor. The list is due on Friday the 21st. And so we'll see how much of that will be funded.
I know this is an election year. We don't have enough time to talk about it, but
It's
that
an
affects
election
you
year.
as well.
That's it. It's an election year. We're asking everyone to come out and vote. I try to do whatever I should do across my district. I make sure I am not looking at one area as opposed to the other and giving preference to one area over the other. I try to make sure the entire district receives resources to the best of my ability. And I'm hoping that the people will understand that and say, you've done a good job. I have 2 opponents in an upcoming primary, but, I'm a child of a living God, as I would always say. And so I am doing what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
Thank you for having
I'm sure
me.
we're all more informed about the bail bond situation and, importantly, what's necessary in your community and what you are doing there.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for being our guest here on Brooklyn 45.
You're welcome.
And now it's time to go to Nye Harrison, who's sitting with a young academic achiever.
Thank you, Sam. Welcome to Young Academic Achievers. My name is Nye Harrison, and I have here with me one of our young academic achievers, Kaila Prescott, from a performing arts high school here in the city. Hi, Kaila.
Hi,
Welcome.
hello.
Thank you for being here. We're glad to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. We spoke about, we're highlighting young academic achievers here in Brooklyn. So you go to a specialized performing arts high school.
Yes, I do.
Yes. Can you tell me about what that process was like auditioning for the school?
It was really nerve-wracking. I remember I knew that I wanted to go to a school that would help me get to the career that I wanted to do. So I just looked up performing arts high schools, and I just found the one that seemed the most recommended. It had such high accolades. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go there. So I begged my English teacher, who had who had experience in film, and I was like, I need your help. I need to ace this audition. This is where I'm gonna go. And I worked on my model of The Crucible for months.
Oh, wow.
And she every day after school I would be there, and she would help me, and then she'd be do this, do that, and I'd be cool, and we'd work on concepts together. And then when I finally went to the audition, I felt so confident in my soul that I would get in, because I was if I don't get into here, I have no plan B, no plan B, no nothing. Plan A through Z was to go there. So
Nice. So practice makes perfect. I like that. So you told me that you have a 94 average right now.
I do,
right?
yes.
And this is a really high, amazing average.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, what motivates you to do such high achieving grades in school?
Well, for the longest time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. As a kid, I was I'm going to be the president. And then I was I want to be a doctor. All these different things. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So being good in school, it just sort of came naturally to me. And as I got older, as it got harder, it just felt important to keep my options open. So, no matter what else I'm doing, no matter, what arts or anything that I get into, having strong grades and, being dedicated to that and, maintaining my grades and my interests, it feels like an important life skill to have, and it just translates into everything. So
Nice. I like the focus more young people need to have. You also mentioned that your support team has been a big motivating factor for you. Who is your support team, and how have they contributed to your early career so far?
my mother, she's very important to me, and my entire family, and the the system and the family that I've built at school really helps me just know that no matter how hard it gets, what I'm working towards. My mom, she's seen my interest, and she's helped me get jobs, working on little movies. I'll be a PA on something, or I got this internship once through school, and it's helped me just be in the industry and further develop the solidity and knowing that I want to do this thing, and being in it and getting to do it just makes it feel more real to me.
Nice. Tell us more about the internships and jobs that you had and and extracurricular activities that you're doing in school right now.
So my sophomore year, I was really into being a costume designer. I was that's so cool. I love clothes, I love fashion, everything's I'll just design costumes. So I got this internship at New York Theater Workshop, and I was like a costume intern, and it was like so cool just to like sitting there hunched over like this dress, like just working on like making sure the seams were perfect. Like that was like it was like the highlight of my like entire summer, and I got paid to do it. So that was like the best part. It was really fun. And then the next summer, my junior year, I got to be a PA like on this little movie.
Tell us what PA means.
Oh, right. Production assistant. I got to be production assistant on this little movie, and it was like so much fun just to be there. Like I was like a script supervisor, so like if they messed up on a line, I'd just be like, oh no, it was actually this, and like that was so much fun for me too. Like just being there and seeing the director like just come up with concepts and everything was really cool. And yeah, and then at school, like being a stage manager and working on shows, like that takes up all of my time, and I'm so happy doing that.
So that sounds really amazing. How do you balance your school work, like the math and reading, and then your extracurricular activities, and then spending time with your family, and then like having fun, being 16? Like how do you do all those things at one time?
Well, there are plenty of times where like I don't, and like it all falls apart. Especially like when things get closer to like the conception, like closer to show dates, things just tend to fall apart. But a lot of my friends have the same interest, and they understand my passion if they aren't in the same industry, and it's really helpful to have people who like get where you're coming from. When it comes to like school and also doing like shows and everything, like a lot of the teachers are really understanding, and they'll be like, okay, you can submit your assignment later. So I know I'm really lucky to have an environment where everyone understands what I'm trying to do, and they like help support me through that. So yeah.
Okay, great. And tell us two things. What impact do you want to have on your peers, and what are some goals and aspirations you have for yourself in the future?
I don't impact on my peers.
Or your community.
On my community. I guess I just really want to make the world a better place, I guess. I just want to tell the stories I want to tell, and like be able to like express myself creatively, and I want it to be meaningful.
Right.
And whatever that may be or whatever that may mean for me later, I want my work or whatever I do with my life to mean something.
Thank you, Nye Harrison. If you know of a Brooklyn middle school or high school student with a grade point average of 90 or above, give us their name. We'll feature them right here to talk about their work at school. We hope this will also encourage other students to be excellent as well. Email us at brooklyn45tv@gmail.com. Brooklyn 45 is a registered 501c3 not-for-profit, and we welcome your support. And please tell your friends about this program. On behalf of our Brooklyn 45 team, I'm Sam Tate.